Corey here with another podcast for Healing Through Yarning. Invited Uncle back again for, doing a bit of a yarn on the work he does these days. Over to you, Unc.
Cool, thanks, Cor. It's good to be back having a yarn with you. I'm here at the moment and doing my last workshop for the Rainbow Lodge program. I do this program. It's called Healing the Warrior. It's a 4-day program, and I'm here doing that. And I've got to say, I've done a lot of work with Aboriginal men, but this workshop has been, for me, the most rewarding. It has been the most empowering and impacting. And most likely I'd probably put up there the most challenging as well, because we do this also in the John Moroney Centre, Remand Centre out at Windsor, Windsor or Richmond, depends on where you live out there. We've done it with 170 plus men in John Moroney.
Yep.
And here at Rainbow Lodge, I think we're up to around between 80 and 100 men have done it in the 2 years. And we've been at John Moroney for over a year now.
Yeah.
So it's been really good, bro. It's been good, We're doing some real impacting work just in the last couple of days with the 4 residents that they got there at Rainbow Lodge. So Rainbow Lodge is it's basically a transition house for men who are in the justice system, who don't have residence to go to. They can go and stay there. They do recovery programs there. They do housing and support and coordination and assistance and basically helping men to reintegrate back into society in a residential setting.
Yeah.
And good program. It's the second oldest rehabilitation program in the world. It's the oldest in Australia.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that's where you are today, but we've touched before, your journey of recovery and trauma and still overcoming some of those things today. So what got you working with our men?
I worked as a technician with Telstra for 10 years. I did a whole lot of labouring and building sort of stuff, and in 2000 I come into recovery, went into the Who's rehab that was at the time in Pitt Street in Sydney, Pitt Street in Redfern, and I basically did 12 months of rehabilitation there, and then 3 years later, I was still in recovery, of course, got my life together, started rebuilding, and I studied drama, and I did a few other jobs just around labouring, and I didn't know what I wanted to do. I was 35 years old, at a sort of loose end, and so I got an invitation to be a residential worker at the Who's rehab.
Yeah.
So I went back there, and as I was working there, I got my Cert 4 in alcohol and other drug counselling, and that was the beginning. And primarily, they wanted an Aboriginal worker because they wanted to have more opportunity for Aboriginal men to come in and feel that they had cultural support.
Yep.
But there was no cultural support. It was you do it there the white way, but that was it. But that's where I got the start of working with Aboriginal men.
Yep.
And then that went on to later on. I worked with homeless men in what's called the drunk tank at Salvation Army.
Yep.
Over in Surrey Hills, and had a break from that. Worked for a little while at Foundation House, rehabilitation program. Had 12 months there, and then I was invited to help set up the Link Up New South Wales counselling service, and in particular support the counselling and therapy for Aboriginal men who were stolen generation. And I love that. It was fantastic. I got to work quite a bit with the Kinchela men. We got funding to do a weekend away with the Kinchela men, and that really consolidated for me. Would have been about 2011. It really consolidated for me how important it was to work with Aboriginal men and to give them specialist perspective, specialised support through a trauma lens, and to look at their experiences of trauma.
Yeah, touching on trauma there, because a lot of that, leading up to where you finish off there working with the Kinchela men and through Link Up, you just spoke a lot about recovery places that you worked in. So for you, where did you draw the line that my addiction and men I'm working with addictions actually have an underlying trauma?
Yeah, I reckon I really found that when I first started working at Who's,
Yeah.
every Aboriginal man that came in there who I talked to and had time to sit down and yarn with, they talked about the dysfunctionality of their family. And that dysfunctionality was things like mum and dad separated when I was young, or there was domestic violence, or there was poverty, or dad was incarcerated and mum looked after me, or mum was in addiction or alcoholism, unhealthy relationships or dysfunctional relationships. But also then there was like, we moved to Western Sydney, or we moved to Sydney because there was more opportunity. And for me, I just look at I used to think to myself, more opportunity to access more trauma. That's how I viewed it. So many men that I started meeting, and then that was enhanced when I was actually working with Kinchler men.
Yep.
Really seeing that stolen generation effect and impact, and all the associated unhealthy behaviours with that. You know, the abuse, the disempowerment, the sexual abuse, the labelling, the stereotype, the racism, and so on and so forth, and all the institutional racism and discrimination, and the system working so hard to really shut down and negate the position of Aboriginal men.
Yeah.
And so there, it started very early, very quickly for me. So that was at Who's in 2003 or 4. I think I started working there. I saw it right through up until I finished at the Link Up.
Yep.
And then I was working with Aboriginal men doing the Strong Aboriginal Men's program for the Education Centre Against Violence. And I co-designed that to start off with, and then later on rewrote the whole program to include more trauma, because the health sector, which facilitates the Education Centre Against Violence, they wanted us just to look at the violence of men and get them aware and help them to affect change. But you can't do that unless you work with them through a trauma lens. So we had to incorporate a good solid 3 days out of the 9 to be trauma-informed process.
Yep.
Yeah. Including the colonisation and the institutional trauma, which was a big factor. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's gone on to writing programs from, I guess, just been out there, I guess, doing the run-of-the-mill type of work, especially in a lot of those rehab centres it's kind of rinse and repeat in a lot of those centres.
Oh yeah, that's a really good analogy, rinse and repeat, yeah.
So write that, I guess, the first time co-writing that program, how was that process for you?
It was wonderful insofar, it was daunting, but it was also wonderful because I had, my then colleague at the time was one of my dearest friends, Uncle Vic Morgan, and Uncle Vic had the real calm demeanour, really insightful, had some really good experiences and understanding, and he brought a lot of calm to my madness and my craziness and my hecticness around what I want to achieve. But we also had one of our other brothers there, Hector Terrer. Hector was strongly involved with supporting us, and Hector had worked with New Street, but had also his own lived experiences. And so we had this really wonderful collective of men, and then we had access to Andrew Anderson. And Andrew gave us a lot of insight for the period of time that he worked with us with the Strong Aboriginal Men's program. And he brought a real strong perspective into that the colonisers' impact on us as men, and our views and how we did things and our perceptions, and how to look at holding to account those processes and removing them or erasing them, not just removing, but to slowly erase them out of the thought process and the expectation.
Yeah.
So I had this collective of really strong Aboriginal men around me who really guided me, and like I put stuff together and come up with sessions, but a lot of that was supported by these great men I had around me, and we worked collectively. And as I said, it was daunting, but it was really effective. We then put that through a trauma lens, and we unpacked it as to how would we see this as Aboriginal men if we were in a community and Aboriginal men were coming to deliver this to us. Yeah. How would we feel about that? And it was a really big unpacking, and we I think we came up with what was quite a successful product in the end.
Yep.
Yeah. Yep.
And that program's still running today through the Education Centre Against Violence.
Yep. Yeah.
So
I'm pretty proud of it. Like the fact that I was involved with it from the beginning, and I was with ECAV for nearly, I think it was almost 12 years.
Yep.
And you know, we effectively went to 32 communities, I think it was. Some of those communities we did the program twice, and we on last count, I think it was around 300 Aboriginal men in those 30 communities who we'd had levels of engagement with around helping them to understand trauma, which is a pretty powerful kind of thing to achieve.
Yeah, it is. It's a big number, you know, for people completion. It's profound work, and I guess being a part of that pioneer stage of that is something to be proud of.
Yeah, and you were there. You came along as well. You got to be a part of it as well eventually, and like, you know, there's so many intersections with something like that give opportunity to really look at, you know, us as men, Aboriginal men, us as men, and how trauma affects us. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess my big learning from the Strong Aboriginal Men, but also I guess my journey is the accountability for each other with men. Is it's something that we've through colonisation and I guess the way systems are set up now is Aboriginal men holding each other accountable is something that is a foreign thing for us.
Oh yeah, yep.
But that was our way of being and living. Was we were accountable to our uncles, to our brothers, to our fathers, to our grandfathers. Through colonisation, it's something we've lost. Yeah,
very much so. And it's a blight on us that we don't have processes in place where we're able to re-engage that and reinvest in that. And as much as I get frustrated at the African American male communities in their way of doing things, I have great admiration for the fact that they actually have whole processes that they've put in places within certain communities that really lend weight to cultural connection, and that historical engagement of fathers and sons, young men and elders, and I think we need a real monumental shift here in Australia. Well, I won't say in Australia, in New South Wales. I think a real monumental shift around that accountability back to other men.
Yeah.
And with that comes also accountability to our women and our families. And you know, I'd never want to negate the role and responsibilities of our women with our men, but I think that we really have to stand up as men and start holding each other to account.
Exactly right, and that's where it starts for us, you know, and our women come along that path with us to make, you know, better communities, environments, households for our babies growing up.
Yeah, absolutely.
So for you with that, you know, doing all that initial work and writing programs and really seeing that need for Aboriginal men to work with Aboriginal men through an Aboriginal lens, but also from an Aboriginal standpoint of writing that program. Where have you seen that change in a broader view in New South Wales in the last 20 years?
I think it's been somewhat glacial in its implementations across the state. I see a lot of agencies who want to implement Aboriginal men specific programs, but so often those programs they're a white construct, white design, and then they want to put some dot paintings on it and call it Aboriginal.
Yes.
And so the only places where I've seen it really implemented or enhanced is through Aboriginal organisations, the Aboriginal community controlled organisations, where they have localised processes in place to support Aboriginal men to work with Aboriginal men. The bigger social welfare sector and the non-government organisations such as the care agencies, Anglicare, Baptist Care, and, you know, Mission Australia, and all those big government-funded NGOs, for all the want that they have to want to work effectively and get funded to work effectively with Aboriginal men, they aren't willing to surrender the processes to Aboriginal people, and in particular to Aboriginal men, for those to be designed and implemented by Aboriginal men, which is it means, look, there's a couple of parts to that, which is like, if your program's kind of getting minimal success and you can write back to the funding body and say, well, we've got these kind of effects happening, they'll keep funding you, and those agencies don't want to lose their funding. So it's kind of like you keep the people broken so as that you have broken people to fix.
Yeah.
And where we've had success, like we're only like it's a drop in a swimming pool, not even that, probably in a very large lake, as to what the outcomes are for us. But the only areas I've seen success is when it is driven by Aboriginal people, Aboriginal community controlled organisations or Aboriginal organisations, or partnered agencies where they are able to have greater say over how the programs are designed and implemented, and who gets to design them and implement them and facilitate them, but most importantly.
Yeah, it's a lot of that comes from, for yourself, was there's only so much you could do working in organisations, but then you've taken that step to make your own business. So tell us a little bit about how that come about and the naming of your business and stuff like that.
Sure. Several years ago, I'd considered starting my own business and specifically working with Aboriginal men, and I was invited to, when I was at Link Up, to do some cultural awareness training, and I designed a workshop which I was just doing as a contractor for local health services, called Working With and Understanding Australia's First People. And it got some leverage, it got some runs on the board, and then it became a bit more in demand, and bigger agencies wanted it. And then those bigger agencies were going through services like LEAD, which used to be the old, what was it called? I'll think of the name. Anyway, LEAD's the government funded service that offers training of all different sorts to the welfare sector.
Yep.
Including police and other agencies in the justice system. And so that would have been about, it would have been probably 2010, 11.
Yeah.
And I needed a name, and I was talking to one of my cousins out in Wilcannia, and we're out there when they introduce it, or when we as Barkindji men, when we introduce ourselves, we say Wimpitja Barkindji, and Wimpitja means I am. And so I just love that word, and I set up Wimpitja Training Skills Development and Consultancy, and registered it, and got an ABN and so on and so forth. And by 2014-15, like, I was getting lots and lots of work individually, and I took on 2 business partners later on. One of them was Victor Morgan, Victor Morgan, and we started designing certified qualifications in partnership with, we've got a RTO, which was TAFE in New South Wales.
Yep.
A good friend of Victor's, who became a man who became good friends with myself, Rob Cohen, was working there running the Gamarada program, or running TAFE's Gamarada program, which is not to be confused with Ken Zulmalovsky's Gamarada program.
Yep.
They were running that and having really good success. And they became our RTO body, and we designed a mentoring qualification. It was a Cert 3 in mentoring. We took that to Qantas. We also took that to the Uluru Resort. We worked with the staff up there. We had a number of other arrangements in place where it was going. And sadly, later on, when Uncle Victor passed away, we annulled that contract, and my other business partner, Rhonda Rooklin, who's my life partner as well, we continued the business, and she coordinates everything, and I design and facilitate. And I specialise with working with non-Aboriginal people around understanding the effects and impacts of colonisation on us as people, why we have the disparity, and what needs to be done to work more effectively, responsibly, and safely with Aboriginal people. But for me, working with Aboriginal men, which was through our company as well, it's working with Aboriginal men through a trauma lens, and specifically by Aboriginal men, for Aboriginal men, to Aboriginal men.
Yep.
Yeah. So.
It takes a leap to start your own business and start doing that work, and you're lucky enough to get some good contracts there. And one thing that stood out for me there is, with Uluru going up there and doing that mentoring program with the resorts up there, is a video that we both use is Uncle Bob Randall's Kanini, who's from up there. But one of the references he makes in that is if you look over the other side of the rock, there's people over there living in a resort. And I remember the first time I heard it, after staying at the resort, I was like, I kind of felt some guilt.
Yeah.
So I guess, any thoughts on that for you?
I've been up there a couple of times, and I really struggle. I didn't actually get. I went up to deliver. Rhonda and Victor and I flew up there to deliver the training, and I'd had a minor procedure done on my prostate a week before, and got an infection. I ended up being flown from Uluru to Alice Springs and spent 5 days in intensive care in Alice Springs. Wow. So I didn't get to work at the resort. However, I got to stay at the resort and to do other stuff there prior to that. And I've got to say, it's really challenging to see the degrees and levels of disparity.
Yeah.
And I think for me, anyone who wants to really see the void that exists between Aboriginal and non-Aboriginal people, go to Uluru and go to the community.
Yeah.
Go to the resort, and you just and people so easily say things like, oh, why can't they just do this, or why can't you just do that? Like, the reason why you can't just do that is because it's not their lifestyle, it's not their way.
No.
It's not their language, it's not their perception, it's not their worldview, it's not their want. They're being forced to live like that, and putting people into houses. And I've heard people say like, oh, the state of their houses is appalling up there. And I go like, yeah, but did you ask them if they wanted to live in a house? Like, or did you expect them to, and then you convinced them to, and now you expect them to live the way that you want them to live and be, so as that you feel comfortable, so as that you feel good. Yeah. And for me, like personally, that really pisses me off, because I know that the challenge here is that we can't go backwards. However, there has to be a compromise. Like, I often talk about how, 1967 referendum gave us, citizenship. We weren't fighting for citizenship. Why would we want to be Australians? Why would we want to get in bed with the people who were the ones who removed our children, stole our land, massacred us, raped our women, spread disease and illness throughout us, and then told us we're the lucky Australians? Why would we want to do that? It's just madness, in my opinion. It's delusionness of privilege, and so when I went out there, I really struggled with the idea that I was going to try to give something to these communities that had substance and meaning. And the only thing I wanted to do was I wanted to help the workers to better understand that and to better appreciate what kind of challenges they beset them when they were engaging with and working with Aboriginal people.
Yeah. And I guess that from that, there was that learning experience of, what do I actually want you to learn?
Yeah.
Going up there with maybe a tailored program, thinking, okay, this is going to work up there, then going up there and going, actually, you can actually see a first world country. You go around to the other side of the rock, and it's a third world country. To really say, well, maybe this program, I need to adapt and mold, and I guess that's one good thing about writing your own program is having that autonomy to say, actually, this isn't working. Let's make that change.
That's a great point. That really is good. Like, and that's what we did with the second design of the Strong Aboriginal Man. We took away we took it from being through a white lens, and in particular, what black lens we had on it was a feminist lens, and we took it away from that and we put through the lens of Aboriginal men. And I think if you're not willing to review your processes and outcomes and your responses and the impacts, then you're going to set yourself up for degrees and levels of failure. But you'll also have levels and degrees of success. I think there's always the possibility of hitting some marks. But I think if you want to have the success, you've got to be willing to reflect on yourself, and you've got to take the harsh impact. When we were doing the feedback on our website, I remember thinking like, gosh, we've got all this great feedback here. We need to get some stuff and get some footage. And I looked at some of the feedback that we got that was not so endearing and not so bright and colourful. And I thought actually, before I even put this up, I actually want to take this away and reflect on what do we need to change. But that was also ego driven, because my ego was going, yeah, well, if you change that, like, you don't have to worry about putting that stuff up on your webpage. And no, that doesn't. You got to put the good and bad up. But you got to be willing to reflect on yourself, and I think that's a good perspective on us as men. We have to constantly reflect on ourselves. Why are we doing what we're doing? How are we doing what we're doing? What's going on? How is it affecting other people? What are their perceptions of it? What are they taking from me as a person with the interaction that they have from me? And for me, I look at that. There's a real strength in when you're able to do that, when you're able to reflect on yourself and just affect, even if it's minor and lesser changes. Change any kind of change that we do to ourselves in personal reflection is beneficial. And if you do that in an organisational level, then it means that you're willing to be more engaged with what your outcomes are than what you expect them to be or just want them to be.
Yeah.
And they're community driven as well.
Yeah, and one thing that I've always encouraged people to do, as you know, at the end we ask people to do evaluations and stuff like that, is be honest. I'm not going to take any offence.
Yep.
If I was shit, tell me I was shit. Because you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
If you're up there delivering something, someone's not being honest with you about something that didn't come across right, or sometimes it's just a demeanour in delivering something. But be honest with us.
Yep.
Yeah.
I love that expression. You don't know what you don't know, as you said. But if I don't know, then I don't know what I need to change. And if you don't know how to tell me or feel safe with telling me that, then nothing changes.
Exactly right. And that's not only in a workshop,
that's
environment, that's life.
That's life.
Yeah.
It's relationships. It's family. It's society. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And if we're not, and as you said there, if you don't feel safe enough, tell me that. What am I doing to not make you feel safe?
Yeah, exactly. Beautiful.
It's some of those things that we need to reflect on all the time. Yeah. So writing programs, and you opened up with the program now that you're having. John Moroney Correctional Centre.
Yep.
It was also through Rainbow Lodge, doing it with the participants coming through Rainbow Lodge.
Yep.
Look, my life experiences of living in a correctional centre, but now working in one, having a Aboriginal-led program for Aboriginal men, written by Aboriginal men, delivered by Aboriginal men, but also then you've taken the further step of bringing people in to co-facilitate with life experience, living in that environment.
Yep.
What was your thinking around that? But also, I guess the change you've seen from a system in that point of view of allowing you to come in and do that.
So I'll just answer the first part of that. So the idea behind bringing in men with lived experience is that, when studies have revealed time and time again that when you want to affect change at a personal level for demographics of people, you bring in people who've had the lived experience, and they've done that. They did that with the children who were sexually assaulted through the institutions. They've done that with communities where there might be a traumatic event that happens or a series of events that happens. And as they grow up, they go back, and those people tend to also gravitate towards wanting to work in the fields to stop it from happening again. So bringing in men with lived experience was a given. I'm not going to go in there. I've got a very small amount of jail experience, but I wasn't going to go in there and be telling men, this is what happened to you, and this is how it's affecting you now. I wanted men with lived experience of long-term jail who turn their lives around to come in and also give leverage and weight to the fact that they say to a guy, you can do this as well. I'm giving you support and permission to do this, and insight. If you look at your trauma, you can unpack your trauma and repack yourself as a man, and you can affect change in that. So I think it's insulting to expect that any man who's in a correctional facility can do a program that's designed by a white man or a white woman in a foreign country that gets sold to Australia for our facilities and amended to our correctional facilities accordingly, that you'd expect those men to embrace that and want to engage in it, and that it's going to have an impact. I think you're deluded. I really think you are. And I think that's a bureaucratic process that's set up that supports the perpetuation of funding within those constructs.
Yeah.
Whereas when we have success at the level that we've had success already, it's what's warranted and needed. And I see that and I go, well, if it's warranted and needed, now we can start lobbying to get more funding. And not just to do that, but to set up also mentoring. So bringing in lived experience men also is another pathway to say, well, you're not the sum of the worst thing you've ever done, or this event in your life. That's not who you are. You can shift and move through that. And the facilitators I've got, they're great facilitators. Yourself is included in that. And I'll be honest with you. I'm not just doing this with a camera. I have great admiration and respect for the way that you facilitate, the ease with which you engage men, especially in the justice system. And I see Paul doing it as well. Paul Bird. I see the ease with which you guys engage men, and it is that comfortability that you guys got lived experience, and the guys that were sitting in incarceration have a level of trust with you guys, have a level of appreciation, and I think also a level of awe, but also overall it's a level of feeling safe.
Yeah. I guess thanks for that, and I guess I've reflected on it a couple of times. The other thing for me is, and I don't know, it's because of the trauma of it, but it's the comfortability of being in there.
Yeah, yep.
And that's, it's something that you were with me in my first experience when we went to John Moroney and do a walk around before I started with Justice Health. When I left, I had to gather myself in the car park because I'd done time there, and it was just, no one told me you could walk out. But yeah, so for me it was that moment of, holy shit, like, but the comfortability, and I remember, and you'll probably touch on them, that Peter Ferris and Anne-Marie took us for a walk around, and me and Anne-Marie were kind of dragging at the back talking, and just the chats I was having about the place, she was like, oh, have you worked here before? And I was like, yeah, ground maintenance. And then we kind of had a laugh. But yeah, so touching on them too, how have they been in helping?
Look, the best part of us going into John Moroney Remand Centre is that the Sappos out there and the Moss is just phenomenal.
Yep.
Like these guys, they give everything they've got to our program succeeding, and they lobbied the men. And the process is for the men to come in and do the program. They get a tablet, and it's the programs come up there. What they can register for it. But what happens is the week that it's happening. So we come in on a Monday. So Sunday night they go, basically the Mosses aren't working. So Friday before, the Sappos and the Moss will go around and say, like, the program's happening on Monday, you're still interested? And they usually are. Monday morning comes and they're usually dragging the chain. The guys are going like, oh, I'm not sure, no, I want to do this, missing out. And it sounds weird to say that they're in a correctional facility and they can't just be forced to come and do it. And that's the other part of our program. We don't want it mandated. It's voluntarily. So come Monday morning, the Sappos are lobbying these guys, and then they're juggling and shuffling, because some guys will say, look, no, I'm not ready to come yet, I don't want to do it. So they want to fill the room up with as many numbers as they can get. So they then go and get the second tier guys and the third tier guys, and they fill the room up. Like, the least amount we've had out there was 12. There's been 12 overall. Yeah. We've had regularly work with upwards of anywhere below 16 to 12, 10 or 12 guys. Yeah. And they work tirelessly. Everything we need, they get it resolved for us and sort of supported for us. So even on days where they've had lockdowns, they've gone and lobbied the government to say, look, it's day 2. If they miss out on day 2, we may as well just cancel the whole program, because these guys, they're on a roll. They've started investing in awareness and understanding. And so let's keep it rolling. So they've made very special discompensations for us to be able to go in when there's a lockdown happening. Yep. And we take tea and coffee in. Like we take tea and coffee and biscuits in there, and those guys get to do a workshop. When everybody else is locked down, they're sitting there doing a workshop, and they're having a cup of coffee and a cup of tea, and they're having a biscuit, and and we're doing the program, and the gratitude from the men to be able to do that is profound. But at the same time, usually by this time, the guys have got an inkling or an insight into how powerful it is to understand your journey of trauma. And they want to be there. They're not just there for the tea and the biscuits and the coffee and the biscuits. They're there because they're leaning forward and they're going like, you know, and this happened, this has happened to me, and this is why I do this, and they're joining dots.
Yep.
And then that's reflected back. The Sapos usually say we see the change in them. It's quite profound. They shift. They become more playful. They become less kind of staunch, and they become more playful. They become more respectful. They become more understanding. And to think that you had that effect in such a short period of time, because we only get them for around 4 hours each day. To think that you have that effect on a man who's in a lot of trauma and incarcerated on his life. By the end of the workshop, we've had plenty of tears. There's been plenty of times where this guy's just broken down. Because one of the things I love saying, Corey, is that you're not bad men. You're men with trauma, and these are your coping tools for you to survive in the world in your trauma. And you know, these guys are used to being called pieces of shit and no hopers and bludgers and this and that and whatever it might be, denigrating. And I go in there, or we go in there, and we say, listen, you're not bad men. You've got trauma, and when you understand how your trauma affects your attitude, your behaviour and your lifestyle choices, you can then start to affect change in that, and it gives them hope. So, and the Sapos really love that, because they're the ones who get the ongoing effect of that when we leave. We leave after 4 days. A week later, Pete Ferris will ring me up. He'll send me a picture of himself doing 100 push-ups or something like that. Bless Pete Ferris. But Pete will send me some feedback, or Anne-Marie will send me some feedback, and it's always in the positive.
No, it's good to hear, and for people that have been in touch with the podcast, there's brother Shane Brown that I've done a podcast with early on, and he speaks about, you know, how that program really helped him along his journey of finding himself again and coming out, and he's been doing some great things with his kids, and he's continuing that journey, so it's been good to see. Also with, you know, the links with Rainbow Lodge doing that in the community as well. How have you found doing it there?
Yeah, so the difference between the jail and the Rainbow Lodge is that the Rainbow Lodge guys are often medicated, so they're on Brup, or they're on methadone, or they're on a medication that kind of tends to support them to want to look at recovery and moving into recovery or managing their addictions. So that can be quite challenging in itself, that you're working with guys who are on a medication where they tend to get quite drowsy and sleepy throughout the day. But we try to incorporate a lot of activities. We go for walks down the park. We go, get them out and about when the weather allows. But the difference there is that these guys, I've started highlighting that these guys are going to be walking into another space at the end of their tenure at Rainbow Lodge. And the end of that time at Rainbow Lodge means that if you haven't got a plan and a process, you're very quickly going to revert back to your comfort zone. And we've been implementing that a bit lately, and we've really had some big aha moments from guys, but also we've had some holy shit, like, am I really ready moment. We've had really good success at Rainbow. Some of those guys have gone on to play cricket for Redfern All Blacks, which is we've got the uncle who's at Rainbow Lodge is JD. He's a batter and a bowler and a cricketer at Redfern All Blacks. Ray Weatherall, Bubbly, was working there at Rainbow, and he's a cricketer, life member. Myself, life member of Redfern All Blacks, and Chris Duckett, who's on the board. He's a batter as well, and a cricketer with Redfern. I don't know whether I think Chris is a life member as well. Anyway, we just started getting the guys engaged in that, and so the difference here is that we can have this social interaction with them as well. And with that comes more levels of support, more levels of engagement, more levels of confidence, and greater levels and different levels of safety back out integrating into the society. But the other part of it that comes from that is that there's accountability and responsibility. If you show up at the cricket match and you're stoned or drunk, like there's going to be a ramification. And this beautifully, this will come back into that accountability that we talked about before with Aboriginal men. If this is the processes that we can put in place in a cricket club, I could only imagine how wonderful it would be in our society if we had those levels of accountability where we could call someone on their behaviours, showing up intoxicated or under the influence and behaving poorly or badly, or thinking that that's okay to do.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the other thing with it, and we had a yarn last year about it, was for a lot of these men, they've done a lot of jail. Probably some have never done rehab.
Yep.
So it's also having that conversation about educating them how to have conversations with their partner, because around that is, we're doing a program but our partner's ringing us because we're out, but we're not out, and we're both not understanding how that works. So trying to at that time at Rainbow, they're really sitting in two worlds and trying to coach them through that as well as a process.
We had a young man last year who and this year as well, who his partner was pregnant. He was coming and going from the program, did a lot of the program, really sunk in, and she became really quite aware of his trauma. But I think sometimes the expectation can be a challenge there, where they like, you know, for all the hard work we do, it's also about the man implementing changes, and that relational factor within their trauma and how they affect change. That requires more work and more time and more commitment. And for me personally, I think it requires mentorship. So when you've got men who have not had a man in their life guiding them as to how to be a man, and then expecting that they'll be a father, like, gosh, it just creates so much anxiety and fear and concern. I know for myself personally, I'm sure you would have experienced the same thing. We know we want to do it, we know we can do it, but gosh, when you put in the predicament where you have to do it, sometimes you just want to run for the hills and say, I can't do this, I don't do this. Having a mentor and having support in place, I think it becomes really important. And that's one of those reflections processes I've looked at, where we work now with the staff around. We're trying to work more with the staff around the partners and that. But I guess like Rainbow's got a good system in place because they've got cultural support. They've got the elder there, which is JD. They've got Aboriginal people, men and women on the board, including Chrissy Duckett. And I come there and do the program. Brendan Kerrin does the cultural and community engagement stuff. And like these guys, all the guys who are working there through a cultural lens, we get to write how we do that.
Yep.
You know, and we don't. Claude, the manager there, basically says, I can't tell you how to do cultural stuff because I don't have a license to do that. I just need you to let us know what you're doing and inform us. And if there's something comes up, then we can deal with it, so on and so forth. So we work through that kind of a process, and it's been very successful because we Claude often talks about how other agencies say, oh, don't they abuse it? You know, don't they take advantage of it? Like, you know, JD, for example, says he'll ring up and go, oh, look, I've got to have the day off, but I can come in later on if I, you know, and Claude will be saying, mate, you're entitled to take a day off. You can do this, you know, and that there's more of a likelihood that instead of abusing it, actually the worry and concern that they flip it. We've been flipping around and doing more stuff than we actually have to do.
Yeah,
and that's not just about us trying to be better workers. It's about actually us being available for those men to show what, you know, what principles and standards and morals and ethics and responsibility and values all mean. So
exactly that, and it's
works a treat. Yeah.
It does, and it shows those men too that sometimes it's okay not to be okay.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But it's all right to say, right, I need help. There's been instances, you know, things have been going on for yourself, and you've rang me and said, can you come fill for an hour, 2 hours a day, 2 days?
Yep.
And then just saying, look, when I go in, I've got some stuff on, but the thing is for us is we can call on each other. That's what we do for each other. Yep. And it's okay to say, I just need a fucking rest.
Yeah.
You know, I just need a bit of downtime.
Yeah.
And it's, you know, and that's accountable to each other too, saying, you know, it's, bro, I know you've had a bit going on. What are you actually doing for yourself?
Yeah. And look, you know, in all honesty, I love that about you. You will often ask me that. I also, there's a couple other men in my life who often ask me, what are you doing to look after yourself? And that very question, in a cultural context, it's I just can't throw it away. Like it can't become just a throw off. Oh no, I'm fine. I'm doing this. It's like, if I'm not being congruent with where I'm at and what's going on, how can I expect the guys to be congruent with what they're doing and how they're feeling and what's going on?
Yeah.
We have to walk the talk and live the talk, and I think quite often we do that. We do that pretty good.
Yeah.
April. Yeah.
Yeah. So as you've been on the podcast before, so I've asked you the question that when it's all said and done, where to go. But one thing, there's two questions I'll ask to round up. We've spoken on Uncle Vic Morgan,
mm-hmm.
and that's a concept that I've adapted from him,
mm-hmm.
Asking that question,
yep.
because that's something he done at the end of workshops.
Yep. Yep.
So you've had more deeper conversations with Uncle Vic about that. So what was his thought process around asking the brothers that question?
Yeah, like he would, Uncle Vic would often do this really gentle session with the men about, like, being a father and being a grandfather or being a brother or an uncle, and he usually kind of wrapped that up with presenting to them this single question, which was, how do you want to be remembered when you're no longer here? And like the way he did it, like it hit me when I first heard him do it, and he presented the session. I was a student, like I was back.
Yep.
I was a little boy, like fantasizing about being a man and growing up and how do I want to be remembered. And it's profound because, like, if I look at that question, I guess for me personally, I go, like, all I wanted to be remembered as is a good person. That's it. I'm not a man that thinks about statues or memorials or all that sort of stuff. I just if people can speak nicely of you in the reflection of your name and the reflection of you as a person on the planet, or a spirit moving through space and time in a bag of bones and meat, and then I go, if they can speak warmly of me and respectfully and nicely, then that'll do me. That's basically it. Yeah.
That's beautiful, Brian. I guess the question I'll ask is, we talked before the podcast that you're closer to retirement than not. So in your last, I guess, and the work you've been doing in the next 3 to 5 years, where do you want to see it?
Look, I'd love it if this program could go into more jails and if we actually had it in more rehabs.
Yep.
I think if we were to create also a mentoring support network of Aboriginal men who give can give 3 to 5 days a week of support to men coming out of the justice system and men in healing. I know we would see a decrease in domestic and family violence. I know we'd see a decrease in incarceration. We'd see more accountability around alcohol and other drugs within communities, and antisocial behaviours. And it'd lend weight to giving direction for young men to feel that they belong to something bigger than them. I'd love to see something like that. I'd love to see more of, and it doesn't necessarily have to be my program. I mean, programs specifically for Aboriginal men, by Aboriginal men, to Aboriginal men. And that's what I'd love to see. And I won't leave our women out of this because our women play such an integral role. And I want our women involved with supporting us to support our men. And we just need to work a little bit more at understanding that, because I think sometimes, and I do this as well, I look at that through a white construct. And I sadly, I look at it, I'm a feminist, so I look through it quite often. I still don't really know what black feminism is. And I look through it through the eyes of white feminism, which is what I've been immersed in for probably the last 20 years. And as a result of that, I find that I struggle with understanding how do we better negate the challenges that arise around men's and women's business in a respectful cultural context, so that we're able to get better outcomes. Because ultimately, the greatest recipients of our effects of change and support will be our women and our children. And we don't say our children and our women, it's always been our women and our children. And for me, I go, the importance of that is that we have to have our women involved, but we have to have it done in the right cultural context and process. So I guess a part of that, what would I like to see is to have those resolutions and those discussions and those incorporations of process. But ultimately, I'd love to see our men really, really being given the appreciation, respect and understanding that we deserve as men, and to take our rightful place in every aspect of society. I'd exhale, I'd take my last breath, and I'd do it with great joy and peace and happiness, knowing that I've achieved something.
Thanks for coming on, Braz.
My pleasure. Thank you, Cause, for having me.